There's a version of declining community engagement that looks exactly like a platform problem and is actually a friction problem. They look identical from the outside. Platform is running fine. The notification emails are going out, but nobody's responding. By the time you actually figure out what's happening, someone else in the building is already searching for another solution to the problem. This episode is about that moment. I'm going to walk you through a real situation with one of our long-term clients, TechServe Alliance, a professional organization that runs their community and their private roundtables through BuddyBoss. And in this case, one missing feature was quietly draining the community, so much so that the CEO was actually considering doing a migration away from WordPress. We built something for our client that does not exist off the shelf. The reason we built it instead of recommending a migration is worth sharing. TechServe Alliance runs a community platform that is central to their value proposition. So when the mechanism for participating in the community and generating engagement broke down, it created a sense of frustration for some of the members that we had to solve. Now, TechServe Alliance runs on a two-site architecture. The main website houses the LMS component, and a separate site, a subdomain, houses the BuddyBoss community. We tied this together with single sign-on, or SSO, which allows members to sign in once to the main site and gain access to the community as a result. Now, the really important bit of context to note here is that we helped TechServe Alliance migrate from a patchwork of legacy systems to this WordPress-based platform. It was a significant investment of time and resources. There's a lot of custom functionality that we helped to build. There are many integrations that we helped to set up. And all in all, it was a significant undertaking with a rather excellent result. And the community component is particularly important for this and really for any type of subscription business because it's one of the main ways that you can drive engagement and keep members active. And it's a core part of the platform and a core part of the thing that the members are paying for. Now, the previous platform that TechServe Alliance was using for their community had a reply by email feature. Members would get a notification of a thread reply or a new post, and they would be able to reply to that thread via their email. BuddyBoss, on the other hand, does not have this kind of functionality out of the box, nor were there any third-party solutions available to offer this type of functionality. The assumption that we had that didn't quite hold was that members would log into the BuddyBoss community with their mobile app and interact and engage primarily through the mobile experience. In practice, that didn't turn out to be the case. The notifications of new thread replies, new posts, etc., were being sent out, but they weren't being engaged with. So the conversation slowed and the whole momentum of the community and of the forum area in particular kind of slowed down. Without the ability for members, and these are busy people, busy professionals, to reply to a thread in the community via email, the path to actually get their reply into the community is a lot of friction. They have to click the link. They have to open the site. They might have to log into the site. They might have to go find the thread or the post, and then they have to type their reply in that thread directly. Whereas before, they could just reply to the email just like any other email, and it would go directly into the community. So if members aren't engaging because it's too much friction to do so, then the chances of them leaving dramatically increase. And we don't want that. The ostensible problem was that BuddyBoss doesn't have a reply by email feature. But the actual problem underneath was that a habit loop of the membership had been broken. And the proposed solution, which was to migrate to a different platform, would likely have cost far more than this particular feature was worth, while almost certainly introducing additional unforeseen problems into the equation, which is why, on a side note, I always advise extreme conservatism when considering any kind of migration, because it is a serious undertaking, and you don't know what you don't know until you get onto the new platform and realize that the grass might be greener on some parts of the lawn, but it might be browner on other parts of the lawn. Now, I understand the perspective of our client, of course, because if the platform that we have can't do what we need it to do, then we need to move to a platform that that can. And some of the candidates on the table were within the WordPress space. Fluent Community was a consideration, but we also looked outside of Fluent to solutions, third-party solutions such as Circle, Mighty Networks, Envision Community. Now, these are all perfectly credible options, but they would require a migration, a retraining of the team, a retraining for members, a huge amount of friction and opportunity cost, and direct costs as well. As technical partners of TechServe Alliance, it's our job to tell them our analysis and our assessment of the situation and recommend what we think is probably the best course of action. And of course, at the end of the day, the decision always lies with the client. But our assessment in this particular case was that you've got a working platform that we just spent all this time and money migrating to. It's vastly superior, vastly more flexible than the platforms that you came from. It's heavily customized for your particular business. And migrating would mean doing this whole huge lift all over again and trading a known set of limitations for an unknown set of limitations that would probably not be as under our control as they are in the WordPress ecosystem. Is this an inherent platform limitation, or is it a problem that is actually soluble and one that we can solve for the client? Nobody had ever built, as far as we know, maybe somebody has done this before, but we certainly couldn't find any evidence that anybody had ever built a reply by email feature for BuddyBoss. But that doesn't mean that it couldn't be done. And at MemberFix, we love a good challenge. Connecting a community platform to a reply by email system is a non-trivial piece of engineering, and these systems aren't really built to work together out of the box. But at the end of the day, we got it done and we're very proud of it. And here's what it looks like. First, we have email to thread matching. Every outgoing notification from BuddyBoss gets a unique ID. And that ID is stored with the corresponding user and topic. When a reply comes in, you use that ID to figure out where exactly in the forum it belongs. This is complex logic to get right, especially across different email platforms. The next feature is content parsing. Gmail, Outlook, Apple Mail, mobile clients, they all format replies differently. Every one includes quoted text, signatures, footers, sent from my iPhone. Strip all of that and extract only what the member actually wrote. Another factor here was security. Members need to be able to unsubscribe from a thread via email in a single click without logging in, while the system prevents abuse or spoofed unsubscribe requests. We also needed to include bounce handling. The system checks for failed email deliveries in the backend, stops sending to bounced addresses, and auto-recovers when the issue resolves. And finally, we wanted to make the system provider agnostic, so it works with Postmark, SendGrid, Mailgun, and Amazon SES. So we've got clean architecture that we can extend in the future if need be. So the client's decision at the end of the day was, let's do it, let's build it, and not because it's easier than migrating, although it is, but because the math on a migration was just not mathing. If we could get this done and if it functioned as promised and as we envisioned it to work, then why would we go through all the trouble of migrating away from WordPress and to some other solution? So we delivered the final version, we pushed it live, and the short version is that everything works perfectly because now members can reply directly from their email. They get notifications about threads they're subscribed to directly to their email inbox. They can reply to those threads. They can unsubscribe from those threads. There's no login required. The replies appear automatically, properly formatted in the correct thread, and they stay subscribed to the discussion without ever leaving the comfort of their email inbox. Now, what really made this whole thing possible, other than our amazing team, is that the calculus on custom development, and in particular in WordPress, but really in general in the software space, has shifted. Before the AI era, a statement like nobody has ever built this before was pretty heavy because building from scratch was slower, required a lot more development expertise. It was more expensive. It was harder to maintain. But today, surgical custom code wins the day. And in fact, we find ourselves custom coding things a lot more than even a year ago, just because it's cleaner, it's cheaper, it's faster, it's more precise in that it doesn't do one thing that our client needs and 5 things that our client doesn't need, but it just does the one thing our client needs and nothing that they don't need. They don't have to buy a new plugin. They don't have to pay for yet another subscription. They just get exactly what they need, bespoke, right away. The thing about friction in a community context is that it's often silent and cumulative. The platform may not break, but the habits can break, and people can stop engaging not because they don't want to or because the community doesn't have value, but because the friction associated with doing so is too much. And fundamentally, people always want simple, fast, convenient. And it's our job to give that to them whenever it's possible and reasonable to do so. And unfortunately, by the time these kinds of problems show in your metrics, you might have already lost business. So if you're working through a decision of build versus migrate, and you'd like a second pair of eyes and ears, my team and I would be very happy to hear you out and help you think through this decision on a no pressure Zoom call. So just get in touch with us and we'd be very happy to be of service to you. Link is in the description. I'm Vic and I will see you on the next one.